everybody. Welcome back to Non-Billable Hours. I'm going old school OG today with a audio-only podcast episode. This is how I started the podcast, and I felt like it was an appropriate time to do a bit of a one-off podcast episode about something that I think a lot of lawyers and professionals deal with, that a lot of people don't really talk about too much, especially at work, and something I think that we can all have in our back pocket for times when life throws you a curveball. So today I'm going to be talking about grief. So I want to do a bit of a trigger warning. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about death and grief, specifically including, losing a loved one or receiving difficult medical news or personal news, losing a pet. If that feels too close to home right now, please take care of yourself first and feel free to skip this one and come back to it whenever you might be ready. So first, I want to start off by saying that I'm by no means an expert in grief. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but I'm speaking as a lawyer who has had those times in my life where I've had to show up to work and put on a brave face while something really hard is happening personally. And if you're listening to this, that means you are a human. And if you're a human, that means that you have probably dealt with heartbreak or sadness or bad news at some point in your career, no matter how long you've been practicing. Or if you're a student, you have exams, you have studying, and the world doesn't stop just because of a tough studying period or a presentation or a mock trial. So while I'm not an expert in grief, I have been practicing as a lawyer for over 10 years now. Oh my gosh. And I think I have some helpful things to share, some reminders. If that resonates with you, if this is something that you feel that you could use, then stick around and let's chat. So what do you do when a family member or loved one is in poor health and you have to go to court that morning, or you're in the middle of a discovery or a mediation and you get the call? First off, I think I want to acknowledge a little bit of the reality in our legal profession, which is that most of the time, court dates don't stop. Discovery deadlines and due dates for appeal briefs don't soften, and your clients don't stop needing you. But if you're in a season or a time in your life where something happens and you have to continue on with your practice, there are some things that I want to share that I think might help you. First off, only you know your practice and your client and your file and yourself. So I can't tell you when to push through something versus when to cancel or adjourn or find a coworker if you're lucky enough to have a colleague that might be able to take something from you. So first off, I want to respect your autonomy, your professional judgment, your personal judgment, because I think that there's no one size fits all when it comes to grief. There's no one size fits all when it comes to being an excellent lawyer or a good law student. But I think there are some universal truths that we can all accept and some things that we can all remind ourselves when we're pushing through difficult times in life that I think can help give ourselves a little bit of grace and a little bit of comfort and softness, because life isn't easy and none of us make it out alive. And that's sad, but it's true. And I think that there is some comfort in acknowledging that it's something that we all have to deal with at some point in our lives. And if we're lucky to have loved ones, then we're going to have to be okay with knowing that sometimes you have to say goodbye, and that's okay too. So I know that on the legal piece, there are some grieving and bereavement laws, depending on your country, your province, who you work for, how you work. There might be some opportunity to take a few days off. And if that works for you and your calendar, even if you think you want to push through, I would strongly recommend looking into that. If you don't want to disclose to your employer that you're dealing with something and you'd rather take a vacation day or two, that's okay too. No judgment here. Only you know, your team, your boss. But I think there is something helpful with letting at least one person you work with know, a trusted person, what you're dealing with. And that's for a few reasons. Number one, I find that saying hard things out loud can help us accept them. So if you've lost someone that's close to you, or you're dealing with some unfortunate medical news for yourself or someone you love, or you just had to put your dog or your cat down, those are family members too, and we miss them just as much. But I think letting someone that you trust at work know what you're going through or that you anticipate something is going to be happening shortly, that can help, not only because saying it out loud helps us accept it, but also I think just having that person looking out for you. Maybe they're not going to send those follow-up emails as quickly. Maybe they might take on a task or two that would typically be yours and just try and shield you from some of that work stress. If you have someone that you're lucky enough to work with like that, I recommend letting them know what's up. You don't have to give details if you don't want to. You can just say, look, I'm going through something personal right now. If I'm not as attentive, if I'm not as bubbly, please keep this between us. But I would just, I trust you to tell you this. That's one way to approach it. If you do have bereavement days and you have no problem letting your place of work know, I think it's important to take those. And not only is there grief that comes with losing someone, let's say, close to you, but there's also, unfortunately, logistics. And as lawyers, we love a to-do list. We're very good at paperwork, but I think giving yourself the space and time to not only grieve, but unfortunately go through that to-do list. It's just the reality sometimes. I think that can also be a helpful thing for you to take a few days, even just a day, to kind of make your way through and just turn off your inbox for the day. The emails will still be there when you return. So going back to that permission piece, you get to decide whether you push through or whether you cancel something or adjourn it. Let's say you've got a court date on the books. First of all, there's no moral superiority in pushing through. There's no ranking of how tough you are based on whether or not you show up for court that day. If you have to cancel your motion, if you just don't want to show up, can't show up, have other things to do it. It's fine. Your client will understand. If you have to let opposing counsel know that there was an emergency or something came up, you're unable to find someone to show up, people will understand. And if they don't, they go on your shit list. But my personal experience with other lawyers when it comes to personal things that require a short adjournment or an extension of a deadline, I like to give other lawyers grace and the benefit of the doubt. I have found that they, in most cases, have given me the same benefit of the doubt in return. So don't be afraid to ask for that. There's no superiority in pushing through, and there's no weakness in asking for that adjournment. However, sometimes continuing to work or doing a little thing here and there can be a little grounding. I don't recommend being completely distracted from your grief all the time. I need to be reminded that sometimes, but it can be a little bit of a distraction, give you a sense of satisfaction, checking something off your to-do list. Obviously, it's up to you. If you get a call right the morning where you're supposed to show up to a mediation and you just simply can't do it, that's okay. But maybe if you've got something in a few days, a week or two from now, and you think you can show up for that, then go for it. Only you can make that call. So I don't want you to ask yourself, what would a strong lawyer do? Or what would the person in the office beside me do? Or even what your boss or managing partner wants you to do. The question you should be asking yourself at that point is, what can you realistically and ethically handle today? Because as lawyers, if you're a lawyer, our judgment, our cognitive abilities, our abilities to stay hopefully calm and grounded and objective in court, in mediation, discovery, that's kind of all we have. At the end of the day, we are being asked for our judgment, for our reasoning, and for our brain. And if your brain is a pile of mushy grief, maybe ethically, it's not the right time for you to go argue that contested summary judgment motion. But if it is an easy discovery where you're not the target defendant, let's say, and you're able to just take notes, or it's a 30-10 motion that you think you can attend, and maybe it would be a nice distraction for a couple hours to sit in virtual court, get your order, knock that off the to-do list. It's what you think you can handle and what you think is best for you, right? Not what you think a Harvey Specter would do, because he would probably go to court, but that's not what we're doing today. So if your judgment's intact, if you can competently, represent your client, do a good job, and you think that it would be a good thing for you to do, then proceed. If not, reschedule. So if you are choosing or have to work through it, in addition to, telling one trusted coworker, I think that if you're obviously a sole practitioner, maybe there's a friend in the industry that you can trust, a former coworker, opposing counsel you really like, a mediator, whatever. If there's someone in the industry that you trust, you can tell that person. You don't need to broadcast it. You don't necessarily need to tell your boss unless policy requires it or your work would be significantly impacted. But I just want to remind you that you're entitled to your privacy. You're entitled to feel your grief however you need to feel it, but you don't have to be a completely solo island in this season. You can have someone that you lean on. Grief can be really heavy. As lawyers, I think a lot of us are used to doing our job alone. I handle most of my files alone unless I'm going to a hearing. And even then, it's usually solo. We handle our mediations, we write our briefs, we speak to our clients. It's almost always a solo mission. Your grief, your difficult period in your life doesn't have to be a solo mission, and it might help to have someone who knows you might step out for a call, who can understand you if you're a bit quieter than usual. You don't have to do it totally alone. I think the next thing to keep in mind is that your best right now is going to look different from your best on another day, and that is okay. When you are grieving, your brain I'm pretty sure your brain capacity and your brain chemistry is altered when you're grieving. I don't think that we are in a position to operate at the same level as we are when we're not in that space. Your mind is going through a lot, right? It's either missing someone, it's reliving memories, it's ticking off a to-do list or making a to-do list about all of the admin you have to do. Because did you know that death is real hard on the living, but it's also a massive administrative task for the survivors? And I don't say that to make light of it, but it's true. So your cognitive load in your personal life increases, and that's going to take away some brain power from your job. You might be easily distracted. Your emotional regulation might take more effort. So today's best might mean something different. It almost certainly will, right? It's going to be doing what's required of you, right? Lowering the bar for non-essential tasks. It might mean instead of the typical long emails that you write, your emails might be shorter. Things might be more pointed. You might delegate a little bit more than you typically would to people whose job it always was, but sometimes I like to take certain tasks from my clerk or my assistant. But if you're in a grieving period, it's okay to look to people's job descriptions and lean on them for those things that maybe you might do instead, but not right now. And just aim for competence. This isn't the time to be extraordinary. It's a time to be sufficient. And one of my old bosses that I really love used to always say that on time is better than perfect. Good and on time is better than perfect. And right now, I would say if you are able to do your job, you might not be sparkling at it, might not be the most amazing mediation memo you've ever written, might not be the most incredible deposition or discovery you've ever done. That's okay. Your job right now is to do as good of a job as you can, get through it, and then give yourself some time and grace. This isn't the time to be taking on extra work either. If you're someone that usually raises their hand when a new file needs to be taken on or someone needs a second chair for something in a couple weeks, maybe double check whether you really want to be taking that on right now, especially if you work in a big company or somewhere where there's a lot of hands. They say many hands make light work, and right now, I don't think it's the proper time for you to be taking on a bunch of extra stuff, even if you feel like you want to distract yourself. Distracting yourself from the grief is only going to, likely make you feel it at a different time. So maybe take the time now when it's raw, it's there, it's new, and feel those feelings, because if you just put it off, you don't know when it'll pop up. It might pop up at a not very convenient time. Not that grief is convenient at any time, but I think it's important to give yourself that space. So don't distract yourself with extra work right now. I want to just talk quickly about anticipating grief, right? So if you have a family member, let's say, who's in palliative care or critically ill, you're probably already grieving for that person, and you might feel irritable, you might feel distracted or foggy. You might be waiting for that phone to ring for days, weeks, months, years. That counts as grief. It affects you and it deserves your attention. You don't have to make your life about it. But I just wanted to say a note that grief doesn't always come after a sad event. Grief can be leading up to something that you anticipate will be an event, and that counts just as much too. If you've taken leave or you've recently had a funeral or a celebration of life, you're probably going to be returning to the office at some point. And the first day back to work after experiencing something that kind of shifts your whole worldview. It can be hard. It can feel surreal. It might even feel pointless. You might be sitting there being like, I just went through this whole life-changing experience. I'm never going to be the same person again. And here are these emails waiting for me. None of this matters. I think that trying to reframe it as maybe I can have more perspective now. Maybe instead of letting all of these emails stress me out, I take them for what they are. And now I truly realize they aren't life or death. And I think using that perspective to your advantage can be really helpful, and try to reframe it instead of none of this matters, why am I doing this? But instead more of, okay, if I can handle that, I can handle this. And maybe it'll have less of an effect on you that way. But I think it's good to start with administrative tasks if you can. Things like going through answering easy emails. It's kind of like coming back from a vacation. You definitely did not have fun, and you're probably not coming back with a tan. You're probably coming back with a little bit of PTSD. But I think it's smart to try and go through as though you would tackle your inbox after you've been away for a while. So start with the easy stuff first. If you can knock a couple of easy things off the to-do list, that might help. But also know that you're probably going to have emotional waves throughout the days and the weeks to come. Your grief isn't going to be linear, and you might feel fine for a few days or a few hours and then suddenly feel like absolute garbage. And that's okay too. As lawyers, we definitely are trained to compartmentalize. When we compartmentalize, we try to put our grief in a little box and say, okay, that's going to sit on the shelf and I'll deal with that when I'm done this discovery. That's not how it works. All right. And that's not weakness. It's your humanity. Know that grief is going to leak into your day, and it might pop up in unexpected ways, in ways that might make you, start shedding a tear. If you're just sitting there answering an email, that's okay too. Just give yourself the grace to feel those feelings. Maybe you take a couple minutes away, you go get a glass of water, a cup of tea, come back to it. It's going to be a process. It's not going to be linear. It's not going to be exponential. It's not going to be predictable. It's going to be a shit show of emotions for quite a while. Because as lawyers, we are really used to being the competent ones and the problem solvers, the steady ones, and the one that the client's looking to. But right now, you're just a person, and you're a human, and you're going through something. And you can be a really good lawyer and a lot of other things at the same time. And one of those other things right now, or during a hard season in your life, might be a grieving human, right? You can be that and still be a good lawyer. You can be that and still, care about your job. You can be that and still show up every day doing your best, but your best is going to look different right now. And it might look different for a while. Your identities are not mutually exclusive. And sometimes continuing to work through the grief sometimes might feel like an act of stability. It's you showing up for yourself. It's you not making the grief your whole personality for a long term. But sometimes stepping away from it is the best thing for you. And again, both are valid. So this was a bit of a shorter one today. I don't know how long this is going to be, but I just want to say that if you're in a season of grief, or you've experienced it or anticipate experiencing it sometime in the future, you're waiting for a call or sitting on court trying to hold it together or trying to return to work after a loss, I see you. You're not weak. You're not unprofessional. This is a profoundly human experience that we all will have to deal with at some point in our lives. And our profession doesn't always leave a ton of room for humanity. It's a profoundly human profession in that we are dealing with conflict and real issues and real things, but we sometimes are expected to be non-human. We're expected to be a little bit robotic. And just know that in this moment, you are especially a human first. So protect the parts of you that need to be protected. Be gentle with yourself. And remember, it's okay to redefine your best for a little while at least. All right, that was a bit of a heavy one. If you're still here, thank you. I appreciate you listening all the way through. If there are topics like this that you want to hear solo episodes on, please don't hesitate to reach out. Instagram at Non-Billable Hours Podcast is probably the best way to get in touch with me if there's something that you want to hear about. So don't be afraid to reach out. Consider sharing this with a colleague who may need it, or save it for later you. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I will be back with another video episode with an amazing new guest soon. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves, be gentle with yourselves, give yourselves space to be human. And remember, at the end of the day, we are all just on a rock hurling itself through space. So your emails can wait while you grieve. Okay, bye.
It's all alright. It's all alright. It's all alright.